Agent Rebecca Torres explained that my documents were the missing piece to connect multiple investigations into property and development fraud. But they needed more than paperwork. They needed Karen caught in the act. Chuck gathered 17 other families who had been harassed, and their stories painted the same picture. Fake violations, bogus assessments, forced sales. A retired accountant named Frank Weber discovered the HOA hadn't filed tax returns in over 2 years despite collecting hundreds of thousands in fees. That alone could bring federal charges. We were planning a case like a military operation. Evidence, witnesses, recordings, all lining up. But Agent Torres said the best way to secure conviction was to catch her actively committing crimes. So we set a trap. The Attorney General planned to announce new HOA reform legislation at my cabin. We knew Karen wouldn't be able to resist disrupting it. We hid recording devices, stationed undercover officers, and alerted the media. Sure enough, Karen escalated. My solar panels were sabotaged, but we caught her on camera creeping around with wire cutters. My boat was set adrift, chains cut. My septic system was poisoned with industrial chemicals. At the same time, anonymous accounts spread lies about me online, and Karen targeted my supporters with bogus complaints. But every desperate act added more evidence. Her final play was bold. She found out through political connections that I was meeting with Attorney General Patricia Williamson herself. So she tried to flip the narrative, painting herself as a victim of political persecution. She reached out to blogger networks and planned a live-stream confrontation at my cabin, framing it as citizen journalism. But we were already monitoring her communications. We knew her plan down to the talking points she prepared. The morning came. Williamson arrived at 9 a.m., calm and focused. We were discussing charges when Karen's Escalade roared into my driveway. She stormed onto the porch, heels clicking, shouting about corruption for her live audience. Then she kicked my door in, splinterwood everywhere, and burst inside waving her phone. She demanded answers, live-streaming herself committing trespass and assault in front of the Attorney General. Williamson stood up, calmly showed her ID, and told her she had just committed multiple felonies on camera. Karen froze. That's when FBI agent Torres and her team entered. They arrested Karen on the spot for fraud, extortion, and harassment. Her live stream captured the entire thing, including her meltdown as the cuffs clicked around her wrists. Thousands of viewers watched their whistleblower turn into a criminal in real time. Neighbors stood on the porch in stunned silence as the woman who had terrorized us was led away in handcuffs. 3 months later, a federal judge sentenced her to 3 years in prison, $340,000 in restitution, and a lifetime ban from serving on any HOA board. Her husband was convicted of conspiracy after it was revealed he'd used his political position to leak zoning changes. The HOA was dissolved, replaced with volunteer association without mandatory fees or corrupt presidents. I even received whistleblower compensation, $45,000, for helping recover stolen funds. But the real victory was seeing justice ripple outward. Williamson used our case to push through new state laws requiring HOAs to undergo annual independent audits, and several other fraud rings across the state were exposed. Families who had been driven away came back. The Hendersons bought a new cabin near mine. Mrs. Patterson returned from Florida and hosted a massive block party. Property value soared, and the lake became a model for community living. Now my cabin is peaceful again. No more citations, no more harassment, just sunsets over the water and the sound of loons across the lake. I started a small scholarship fund in Pop's name for kids going into trade schools, and our lake festival now raises money for veterans housing. Netflix even filmed a documentary here, HOA Hell, How One Man Took Down a Criminal Empire. Karen thought she was unstoppable, but in the end, she destroyed herself. And sometimes, if you're stubborn enough, David really can beat Goliath. I was sitting in my grandfather's lakeside cabin, sharing a beer with the state attorney general, when the HOA president kicked my door down. Wood splintered, glass crunched under her heels, and she stormed in, reeking of expensive perfume, screaming about violations. What she didn't realize was that she had just committed multiple felonies in front of the one man who could put her in prison, and she was live-streaming her own downfall to thousands of people online. 6 months earlier, I thought she was just another power-drunk HOA Karen. But she was actually running a multi-million-dollar embezzlement scheme, and I was about to blow it wide open. My name is Marcus Henley. I'm 52, retired after 30 years as an electrician. My pride and joy is my grandfather's fishing cabin on Clearwater Lake, a simple log home he built in 1963, completely off-grid with solar, well water, and septic. Pop used to say, if someone wants your land real bad, find out why. I didn't understand until Delilah Cromwell, the HOA president, came along. She rolled in with her pearl white Escalade. Plates reading Rule 1, and within weeks longtime neighbors were suddenly selling their cabins. I got slapped with fines for having a dock my grandfather built decades before the HOA even existed. Every complaint, every bogus inspection, every legal threat, it became obvious something bigger was going on. Then came the harassment, vandalism, false reports, and smear campaigns painting me as a menace. Soon the police were at my door every other day. They claimed suspicious activity, loud disturbances, drug use, all lies. The visitors they saw were just old union friends dropping by. Each report made me look like a problem resident, and Deputy Chad Cromwell, Karen's nephew, was always the one responding with a smug look on his face. He even once told me, if you just apologized to my aunt and brought your property into compliance, all this would probably go away. That's when I realized this wasn't just about me. Karen was sending a message to the whole community: bend the knee or get crushed. Families like the Hendersons, who suddenly sold, had probably gone to the same nightmare. My phone became a source of dread. Every ping could mean another false report or another neighbor turning against me. But it also brought messages of support from people who knew what was happening. The breakthrough came while I was organizing paperwork for a meeting with the Attorney General's office. Chuck, a lawyer friend, had set up because they were already investigating HOA corruption statewide. As I sifted through citations and violation notices, I spotted something in the fine print. One of Karen's notices directed fines to the Lakeside Estates Community Improvement Fund, account number 847291. It looked official, but it felt wrong. Years of reading electrical contracts had trained me to spot scams. I went to the county clerk's office, and Betty, who knew me well by then, pulled the HOA's filings. The numbers didn't add up. They had collected $280,000 in emergency assessments for dock repairs that were never completed. Another $150,000 supposedly went to landscaping services provided by a company owned by Karen's brother-in-law, formed just 3 weeks after she became president. Insurance claims totaled $95,000 for storm damage on days when the weather had been clear. Betty whispered, "Marcus, this is plain fraud." I copied everything. It became clear Karen wasn't just harassing me. She was running an organized theft operation, stealing from the entire community. Property management fees of $5,000 a month were being funneled to a shell company with an address near Karen's home. She was systematically driving down property values, forcing people to sell cheap, and cash buyers connected to her scheme were scooping them up. The Hendersons and others had been robbed twice, once through bogus fees, and again when they sold their homes for far less than they were worth. Pop had been right. Corruption is always bigger than it looks. Karen wasn't running an HOA. She was running a criminal enterprise. I turned Pop's back bedroom into what looked like a detective's office. Maps on the walls, timelines of harassment photos, and financial evidence sorted into stacks. The Attorney General assigned 2 prosecutors to my case, Sarah Mitchell and David Bennett. They told me this went beyond HOA harassment. It was systematic fraud tied to similar schemes in other counties. Soon the FBI was involved.